Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Leader Feeder. My name is Kirk Langford. I'm the General Manager of Unique Training and Development and Frontline Leadership Systems USA. Before we get started on today's episode, I wanted to give a little shout out to an event we have going on. It's our Frontline Leadership Public Workshop. So with a lot of clients, in fact, most of the clients that we work with, we go on site in person. So we're there at your facility delivering training to your people. But a couple times a year, we offer a public workshop. And this is great for organizations or businesses that don't necessarily have, 10 or 15 or 20 leaders of their own that they need trained. They maybe only have 3 or 4. So they want them to get that high quality training and the Frontline Leadership Program content, but they're not really able to bring us on site. And so we offer the Frontline Leadership Public Workshop. It's happening in London, Ontario, Canada in April. So if you have a couple of supervisors or lead hands or team leads, or maybe even aspiring leaders that you're thinking about moving into leadership roles, it could even be managers as well, and you're interested in getting them enrolled in the course, you can visit our website at uniquedevelopment.com and you'll find information about the public workshop. You can register, learn all about all of the logistics and all of that good stuff. And so we hope that you'll consider sending a few people to the public workshop. Okay, on with the show. Here we go. So today we're going to talk a little bit, I'm going to give you a few tips, I guess, about how to prevent disengagement with the people on your team. There's lots of reports coming out right now. I wish I could remember them off the top of my head to actually quote them per se, but there's lots coming out right now about how disengaged employees are right now, that they're almost more disengaged than ever, or than many years anyway. And so employers are really worried about this because they're thinking, how do I get my employees not only to get the work done, but to be engaged? We know that engaged employees tend to stick around longer, they tend to do better work, they tend to form better relationships at work. There's lots of benefits to having engaged employees. And so it's in our best interest as leaders of organizations and leaders of teams to think about, how do I prevent disengagement? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm just going to share a couple of strategies that can be beneficial to preventing disengagement in your company or in your workplace and on your teams. Okay, tip number 1. Use the hope slope. Create the hope slope. So first of all, you might think, what is the hope slope? And am I about to cringe when I hear this, because it is perhaps a bit of a cringy title. But our research and development team is working on coming up with something way cooler than that. But in the meantime, it's the hope slope. So what is the hope slope? Well, on a team, things don't have to be perfect or great all of the time. We don't expect, kind of in the back of our minds, that things are always awesome. But what we hope and what we expect is that things aren't always bad either. People don't leave teams because things aren't always great. People tend to leave teams when they sense that nothing's getting better. So we're seeing a downhill kind of trend, right? Things just keep getting worse and worse, and work is getting tougher, more frustrating, more annoying. That's when we really see disengagement, or a lot of disengagement. What we can do as leaders is create a hope slope. So we're battling that downhill sense of nothing's getting better and everything's getting worse by building a hope slope. So things are gradually and steadily getting better. And so there's a couple reasons why that's great for you as a leader. One, again, is that it means that you don't have to always be amazing. You're not always required to make sure everything is awesome every single day. So a little bit of pressure off you. You can take a sigh of relief and go, okay, it's not up to me to always be at 110%. But it does mean that you have to think about, what are some of the frustrations on my team? What are some of the obstacles that my team members are facing regularly? And how can I make that just a little bit better, a little bit easier? How can I remove some of those frustrations and obliterate some of those obstacles that are getting in the way from them doing their job well and feeling a sense of accomplishment at the end of the day? So that's what the hope slope is about, sort of what you as a leader can do to get rid of obstacles and eliminate frustrations for your team. So that's the first part of it. The second part is talking about, or not talking about really, but the second benefit of the hope slope, I guess I could say, is that you buy them into it, right? You get them to get excited about the direction the things are going in. So the hope slope isn't about having this secret mastermind plan to make things better on your team. It's about actually involving the team in making things better, right? You're not going to your team and saying, Diane, what are all the things you hate about this job? What are all the things you hate about this task? And they rhyme them off, and then you go, okay, I'm going to remove all of those obstacles. That's not realistic, and that's not how it works. Instead, it's, hey, help me understand what could make you more effective. Help me understand what could make this process more efficient. Help me understand what are the annoyances that get in the way of us meeting our quota regularly. And I'm going to see what I can do as a team to make that better. So it's not just about you behind the scenes, right? Some of it is you as a leader, maybe moving things up to management and above to say, hey, these are some frustrations my team is dealing with. What can we do about those? For sure, that's part of it. But the other part is getting the team involved to say, how can we eliminate some of these barriers? How can we eliminate some of these frustrations together? So the hope slope is showing that things are going to get better and then getting the team to get excited because they're involved in the process of making things get better. So you're going to battle the disengagement by involving them in making things better. So that's the first tip I wanted to share with you. Use the hope slope to help things get better and involve them in helping make it a better team to be on. Okay, that's number one. The second part could perhaps be seen as the contrary of what I was just talking about, but it actually is related. So the second part, or the second tip I have for you, is give as much autonomy to the team as you can. People tend to get frustrated by leaders who they feel are micromanaging them, leaders where they feel like I can't do anything without the leader's permission, or I can't make decisions for myself, I can't solve problems for myself. Not only do they get frustrated by it, but then it sort of trains them to just go to the boss for everything, go to the leader to always ask for permission, go to the leader to solve every problem, to ask every question, when we know in a lot of cases that the people on our team could solve those problems or answer those questions without our help. Maybe a little bit of guidance from time to time, but not really with us needing to be the one to do it, to make the decision. So you want to empower your team as much as possible. Give them that self-direction to be able to, that autonomy to be able to make decisions and solve problems. So think to yourself. Now, this is the tricky part because that sounds very abstract, very pie in the sky. And I want to provide you with a more concrete tip. So here's what you really need to do. You need to think maybe over the past week worth of shift, 2 weeks, and go, what are the things that I've had to make a decision on? Or what are the problems that I've had to solve that in thinking about it now, my team really had the skills or the knowledge or the expertise to solve on their own? That's going to take some time to think about it. I mean, you might want to even write this down. And once you've recognized or identified what those things are, then the next time you get asked that same or similar question or asked to solve that same problem, you're actually going to turn it back to them and say, what would you do? I want to hear your thoughts on this. What's your opinion? Now, you're not going to turn it on them in a negative way. It's not, well, that's not my job. What are you going to do, Bill? Why am I solving your problems, Bill? I'm not paid for that. That's not what you want to do. You want to empower them to say, well, I know you've got experience with this. I know you've got expertise in this. I'd like to hear what you would suggest. So ask for the wisdom to come out, right? Bring the wisdom out of the people in the room rather than just splurging out yourself as the leader. And in that way, you're going to show that you trust the team to make good decisions. You trust the team's knowledge and expertise. And also, you're showing them that, hey, even if I weren't here today and you had needed to make that decision, you probably would have been able to on your own. And so pull from the wisdom in the room. And then, of course, don't forget to recognize and appreciate, right? If you ask them, hey, Tim, what would you do in that case? And Tim says to you, well, I probably would do this. And if that's a great answer, it's well thought out, it's a great fix to the problem, don't just go, well, yeah, duh, obviously you should have done that, Tim. Of course not. We're going to say, thanks, that's exactly what I would have done too. I appreciate that you had that thought. It's clear you're learning, or it's clear you're paying attention, or, I appreciate that you've got insightful suggestions or ideas. All right, so give some credit where it's due, and that will build the engagement on the team. They'll feel like more valued members of the team. I think sometimes what happens in frontline leadership is we are afraid that if we give up too much ownership, if we give too much ownership to the team, it's going to make us redundant. And someone's going to look up from above and go, oh, gosh, this person's team is quite self-directing. They're pretty good at doing things on their own. We don't really need that guy anymore, or we don't need that person anymore. I got to tell you, I think I've heard of once in my career where that has actually happened. In many other cases, and in most other cases, leadership looks at that team leader and goes, what are they doing differently that their team is so much more autonomous, that they're able to do so much more, that they can solve a lot of their own problems? And so it's not actually a detriment, it's actually a benefit to both the organization and to that leader in particular. So even though it could be a little bit scary to think about giving that much more autonomy to the team, I would encourage you to try it out and see where it goes. So That's really what it's all about. Give them a little bit bigger sense of ownership, ask for their input with problems and suggestions, right? And the other part, again, is that hope slope. Show them that things are gradually getting better as much as you can within what you have control over, and get them involved in making things better. So a good sense of ownership, that empowerment, that accountability, and of course, a good sense of the hope slope, that things are going to get better and that there's going to be brighter days ahead and that they can be involved in making things better. All right, folks, I hope you found those tips helpful. I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you did and what you thought of them. If you've used those strategies before, as I'm sure many of you already have, used those strategies or similar strategies, tell us how they worked and tell us what you learned from them as a leader. One of the really cool things I think about being a leader is that it's kind of one big experiment. Every single team is a little bit different. The dynamic is different because the people on it are different and they're individual. So no particular strategy I give is going to work 100% on every team, but also it's not going to work 0% on any team. So I'm always curious to hear if you've used some of these strategies in your own leadership experience. How did they land? What did you have to tweak about it? What part worked well and what part didn't work so well? And how did you adapt to still be a successful leader? So feel free to drop us a line. You can comment on the video or on the podcast episode. You can visit our website, uniquedevelopment.com, and shoot us an email or a message. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to talk more about how we can get involved in helping your leaders be better developed, be stronger, more capable leaders that achieve more performance, feel free to contact us. Again, the website is uniquedevelopment.com, and we would love to hear from you.